If you've got a bunch of unwanted inventory that you've been sitting on for days, weeks, months, years, ship it to Fanatics Marketplace and let them do all the work. Just make sure when you ship it, you use the promotional code Cajun, all capital letters, CAJUN. Hey guys, Brian with Cajun Cardboard coming at you from the great state of Louisiana. And it's another edition of Collector Spotlight. And today the spotlight is on none other than the infamous, the famous, the world famous Chris McGill of Card Ladder fame, former CEO of House of Jordans. How about that blast from the past, Chris? Welcome to the channel.
Great to be back.
Today's episode is going to be great. Okay, so I'm bad at this, but I'm going to try to put some structure down, right? So we can at least appear to be organized. We're going to spend about 25, 30 minutes talking about the phrase that we often hear, playing years, and why collecting cards from a particular, we're going to stick with basketball for today, why collecting cards from a particular player's defined as you define it, playing years is so crucial. Why is it important? How do you define it? How should it affect value? And really just kind of like you mentioned before we got on air, we're just kind of throwing this out there for discussion. It's not like we're going to be giving people answers because it's sort of in the eye of the beholder. It can be defined in many different ways. So that's going to be the first 25, 30 minutes. And then all hell's going to break loose. And I'm going to start asking you a bunch of questions. And so you don't know what they are. I didn't share them with you,
Right.
but they're going to be great questions. There'll be questions you've probably never heard before, but they're going to be fun. So we're going to bounce through those questions and probably go for about an hour today. Let's just the elephant in the room. Tell me what your definition of playing years is.
All right. Well, that's a controversial topic when it comes to Michael Jordan, especially. And I like what you said too, Brian. The way I'm looking at this conversation, this is a conversation starter, not a conversation finisher. All right. Because these are a lot of topics that need to be investigated further and more points of view need to be heard from. Okay. So even on the topic of playing years for Michael Jordan, I have two definitions.
Okay.
All right. I have one that is the strict definition of playing years. And then I have one that is the general definition of playing years. The strict definition is going to adhere precisely to his actual seasons in which he was rostered on an NBA team and played during that season. So for Michael Jordan, that's going to be 9 seasons from 1984 through 1992-93.
Okay.
And then it's going to be 4 seasons from 1994-95 through 1997-98. And then it's going to be 2 more seasons from 2001-2002 until 2002-03. Okay. So those are his 3 stints where he was on a roster for each of the seasons within that duration, and he played. And those are the strict playing year seasons. And then for the card discussion aspect of this, products that are associated with any of those seasons would meet the strict definition of playing years. So a product that was released in association with the 1992-93 season, the final season during his first stint, that meets the criteria. A product that's released for 1993-94 does not.
Okay.
Which is a little bit shocking sometimes when you first encounter that as a Jordan collector. It was for me thinking of it because some great cards are from 93-94.
Yeah, so Scoring Kings comes to mind, right?
Scoring Kings, the first finest refractor.
Yes.
Really important, good cards.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then here's the second definition, the general.
Okay.
The general definition. And what I would call that, and this definition has the virtue of simplicity. This definition is simply, was the card released during his full playing career that is bookended by his first debut, which is in 1984 in the 84-85 season, and his final game, which is April 16th of 2003. So if the card was released at any point between October of 1984 and April of 2003, or if the card is associated with any season that falls in that span, we can call that playing days. And what's the rationale there? It's just simply that those are the bookends of his NBA career. It started
the first day he played and the last day he played.
And he ended in 2003. exactly. So there's the general definition of playing years.
So let me tell you something that I've observed in the hobby. As it comes to playing years and as it pertains to particular card prices, and let's stick with Jordan now. Jordan did not make it easy on us, right? Okay, so retired, came back, then retired, came back with a different team. And so then of course, then we have some of the greatest Michael Jordan cards in the world just happen to be post-playing years, exquisites and ultimate collections and crazy stuff like that. So he did not make it easy, and there's plenty of room for argument and debate and discussion. I have not seen a price penalty applied or a non-playing years tag placed on cards during his middle of the Bulls career hiatus, the baseball hiatus. Now, obviously, if it's a baseball card or a baseball card autograph or something like that, a White Sox or Birmingham's Baron or whatever, obviously there's going to be a diminution in price on that compared to a Bulls deal. But if it's a Bulls card printed in that span where he wasn't playing, but he was technically still a Bull, I haven't seen a penalty applied by the average Jordan consumer. Have you?
No, I haven't, and I agree with that. And it's interesting, the baseball topic is one of the topics that comes up here because, like, right there, 1994, he played one MLB minor league season for, like you said, the Birmingham Barons, which was a Double-A team. And I believe those players are paid. So this is a professional tier of baseball, but it's not the highest level. The highest level would have been actually rostering with the Chicago White Sox.
Of course.
But he played during the 1994 season, and he played in the Arizona Fall League in 1994 as well. So there is 1 year of baseball issues that meet the strict definition for playing years, which is the 1994 baseball cards, which makes those kind of interesting cards.
How many you have?
None.
0. Me, same. Well, I say that. There's a box with hundreds over here, but no, I mean, the ones that matter, none.
Yeah, exactly. They never interested me, but I see the appeal of them. And there is one Birmingham Barons card that sells pretty well.
Yeah,
from 94. So, okay. So the baseball thing is interesting. I think, to your point, I think there are three most controversial card product years for Jordan. 93, 94 is the least controversial, but there is some controversy. The most controversial is 1998, 99.
No doubt. And there's a big reason why. Go for it. You tell me your reason, but that's the elephant in the room, Chris. I mean, that's the 98, 99. That's what we're talking about. And there's a big reason why it's so important. Go ahead. Tell me what you think.
In my opinion, it's got some really important. The market has indicated that 98, 99 has some of Michael Jordan's most valuable cards.
That's part of the reason, yeah.
And it gets tricky because the 98, 99 season, typically the NBA seasons begin in November.
Yeah. So
for the 98-99 season, typically that would have begun in late October or early November of 1998. But there was an owner-induced lockout that was underway during the 98-99 season. So the season didn't begin until late January, and it was an abbreviated season. They only played 50 games. They didn't have an all-star game. Michael Jordan didn't retire until January of 1999. The exact date that he retired on was January 13th, 1999.
Okay.
So there is some reason to think there was some intention that he might play that year. And in fact, it seems like he was possibly going to be rostered that year up until his retirement was made official. And so you have on the one hand, you have the clear and obvious fact that he never played a minute of NBA basketball during the 1998-99 season. But on the other hand, because of the lockout, because of the delayed beginning of the season, and because of Michael Jordan's uncertain status as to whether he would be rostered or not, I think those were contributing factors into decisions that were made with respect to licensing arrangements that were in place with the NBA and the NBA PA that impacted his appearance in 1998-99 products as a fully licensed player in a Bulls uniform. Because card collectors will notice that when Michael Jordan was officially retired from the league, only Upper Deck held the rights to manufacture cards of Michael Jordan in the Bulls uniform due to his exclusive arrangement with Upper Deck. So there is something significant about the fact that 98-99 has non-Upper Deck products like Skybox Premium, like Flair
big
Showcase.
Big cards.
But there's an interesting wrinkle, which is that I'm pretty sure he only appears in a maximum of one set per product. So like with Skybox Premium, he appears in the base set. With Flair Showcase, it was decided that he would appear in the TakeIt2.net insert set. He appears in
apparitions. That's the issue with the apparitions, right, Chris? If I'm not mistaken, why Jordan doesn't have a serial number to 100 apparitions refractor, which would be, good Lord, what, a top 25, top 50 card for sure.
It would be a huge card. So this is the controversy, right? Is that you have important cards of Michael Jordan from 98-99 that bookend his fully licensed Bulls era.
Yeah.
These are the final Skybox Premium issues that show Michael Jordan in a Bulls uniform during the 90s. So that's significant. But like we said, he didn't actually suit up for the 98-99 season. And then questions arise as to, well, what's the better card? Is for example, you have for rubies, you have a 1996 Skybox Premium rubies, which is unnumbered, but a beautiful and and highly desired card. You have 1997-98, which is the advent of the star rubies, but part of the rubies lineage. It is serial numbered to 50. It appears in the base set and the subset. So you have two versions of that card. You have the base one numbered to 50 and the subset numbered to 50. So you have in total 100 star rubies of Michael Jordan from 97-98. And then you get to 98-99, also star rubies, the second year of star rubies, the third year of rubies. He only appears in the base set. There's 50 copies of that star rubies. So then we have 50 star rubies for 1998-99. And the question arises, which is the best of those four rubies cards? Which is the best one? And people will take into consideration the fact that Michael Jordan didn't suit up for the 98-99 season as a reason to lower that card in their determination.
Just move on to the next ones that are undeniably playing year cards, right?
Exactly.
No matter how you define it, there's no denying 97-98 was a playing year, right? But 98-99 is subject to debate, which is why we're doing what we're doing here today. So let me ask you this question. So I took a little bit bigger picture, a less detailed but bigger picture, and I sort of separate his card career into 5 stages.
Okay.
So stay with me here. So everything up to 1997, I consider that playing years. And I know he retired, and I know he was doing baseball, but I don't, for whatever reason, I don't know why. It never even occurred to me to penalize cards that were printed during that 18-month hiatus where he was trying to hit a baseball. If you wanted to bifurcate that, or I guess you would trifurcate that, you could say 84 to 92, 93, 94 and a half, and then go again till 97, 98. But I consider everything 97 and before, I want it. I want to collect, as long as it's a basketball card, I want it. I want to collect it. That's where I've kind of drawn the criteria. There's no debate about that. I want those cards. 98 is the topic of discussion today. That is what we just talked about for 5 minutes. It's subject to debate. The 98 or 98, 99, whatever you want to call it. That is a year in and of itself. And there's a real big reason that's important, whether you consider that playing years, that I'm about to get to in a second with some more data. And then you've got the next 2 years after that, which definitely are not, well, in my opinion, definitely are not playing years. 99, 2000, 2000, 2001. Definitely not playing years because he didn't play. Nobody could say he did. And then 2001, 2002, 2001 to 2002, 3, those are playing years, but they're in a different uniform. And there are people out there who just summarily dismiss Wizards cards as inferior junior varsity cards that we want no part of. Now, part of me thinks those people are doing it for budgetary reasons, Chris.
Yeah.
Because wouldn't it be nice if we could tie a nice little ribbon and say 84 to 97, period, end of story. We don't even need to make this video. Let's talk about the WNBA, right? No, you can't do that. Whether or not those are budgetary decisions or not, I found myself doing that at one point, and then I was looking a little bit closer at white refractors and black refractors and finest gold refractors, for God's sakes. And I was like, man, I got to open this box up. I can't not open up this, brand new canvas and start working on it. And so I've included those into my collection as well. I like those cards.
How about the
price points lower? Price points lower.
Yeah, they are. And how about the Wizards Beam Team out of 500? I always thought that was a really sharp looking card.
Love it. Yeah, that's probably the one that speaks to me the most. That was really quite affordable in my personal opinion. I mean, it was a pretty damn affordable card for a high grade card. And then of course the last phase of Jordan Cardboard is everything after 2003. Which do you treat? And then you get into the licensed post-playing years versus unlicensed post-playing years. That's probably a topic for another day. I think you and I both unequivocally fall in line lockstep on how we feel about licensed versus unlicensed. And just really, that's not even apples and oranges. It's apples and airplanes. Like that's, to me, I can't go there, man. I just can't do it, Chris.
Apples and airplanes is great. Okay, so I just want to say one thing here. So I said that there were 3 controversial years, and we talked about 2 of them. And the third one is the one you just alluded to, which is 03-04, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's the first year of exquisite basketball. It's got some massively important Michael Jordan cards. We just saw it was not the first year of Ultimate Collection basketball, but we just saw Michael Jordan's Logo Man autograph 1 of 1 from that Ultimate product sell for roughly $3 million.
Yeah.
I think that's the highest Michael Jordan sale ever recorded.
Non-playing year highest sale ever for a Michael Jordan card.
Exactly. So it starts to get, that's a very controversial season too. And the whole run of the whole exquisite era of 03-04 through 09-10 is controversial because those cards are so coveted. They're so desired. Michael Jordan oftentimes is one of the highest selling players from any set that he appears in from those products, but they certainly are not associated with any playing year, and there's not even a gray area like there sort of is for 98-99 or for anything that falls into, or 93-94, anything that falls into the general category. This doesn't even meet. So like I said, I have the strict playing years and the general playing years, and those don't even fall into any of those. But nonetheless, those cards are in great demand.
Huge. Yeah. Humongous cards. I have made it easy on myself by just eliminating the autograph from the radar, from the criteria. So, it saved me a lot of money. It saved me a lot of time spent researching and educating myself. I know at some point I am going to dip my toes in those waters, and I'm going to regret it one day. But there's no doubt at some point, and it may be cost prohibitive by the time I finally get over the hump and decide to jump into the exquisite stuff and the Ultimate Collection. And I like the Upper Deck black stuff. I think that stuff looks amazing on the black card with the white Sharpie or the silver Sharpie. There's just a lot of really serious eye candy. I'm just ignorant when it comes to that stuff because I'm so hyper-focused on staying in my lane for now, but I think one day I'm in there. Do you mess with the exquisite stuff? Have you dabbled in that? Not at all?
I once got the idea in my head to gather all of the Michael Jordan base set cards, which are pretty limited in print run, and they look great. But it goes back to your point, which is the budgetary constraint. Collecting, for me, oftentimes I guess you can look at it 2 ways. One way to look at it is like, figure out what the best card is and then work down from there until you reach the level where you can afford, and then you just get the best card you can.
Yes.
Right. Which I think is a pretty common approach. Or the other way is to, just start with everything on the table and then just start taking stuff off the table until you get to a limited enough list of cards that appeal to you that then you can start homing in and focusing from there. Because even the late stage stuff, like the stuff that's coming out now that show Michael Jordan in a suit, are the question exists on that stuff is, are those even basketball cards, or maybe are they entertainment or personality cards, especially when they don't refer to his basketball statistics on the back side, but they just talk about Michael Jordan, the celebrity. And then the playing days aspect doesn't even factor into that discussion because these aren't depicting an athlete. These are depicting a celebrity.
They're also not novel. They're retros. I mean, they're platinum portraits. They're PMG, whatever you retros. There's what else? They have cut aboves and jambalayas. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Whenever I see the word retro, and again, this is just me personally. When I see the word retro, I'm out. Right? It's just not for me. I want the original. Like, why would I buy the retro when I can buy the original? If I can't afford the original, I just wait, or I just don't get it, but I'm not going to, I don't feel that I could, be comfortable, years down the road saying, well, I don't have his rubies or his PMG or his cut above or his platinum portraits, but I got the retro. I got the Fleer retro. I'm never going to be okay with that. So why even start? I'm not even going to go down that road. So I just did some real quick data. I don't know if you've ever seen the Ultimate Jordan Card Guide that a real good collector, Tyler Presnall, does. It's fascinating. It is right up our alley. So I was just digging through that before we clicked record. From 1984 to 1997, 3,388 Michael Jordan cards, unique cards. Okay.
Yep.
That is what, 14 years, something like that? Did I do that right? Maybe 15. I don't know, something like that.
Yep.
And we're including the baseball years and the baseball cards. So 3,388.
Okay.
Just in 98, 99 and 99, 2000, just in the next 2 years, 3,303. So that's kind of why we're having this conversation, is because depending on how you define playing years, you're almost doubling, you're getting close to doubling the number of cards that fall within your wheelhouse that you need to, consider and look at. If you're trying to stick to playing your stuff. So I just thought that was fascinating. I just think of the, Upper Deck turning on the faucet, and it's not that there's all these individual really cool inserts and parallels. No, they just did like Michael Jordan sets where there'd be like 120 Michael Jordan cards. And then there's, the same 120 have a red and a bronze and a gold and a, whatever. And so we think Panini's bad, right? With the tiger stripes and the monkey fur and all the other crap. But, Upper Deck did that a long time ago in 98, man. They did not mess around in those 2 years. They printed the hell out of this stuff. They really wanted Michael to come back, I think. So,
yeah, that's a great point. They did. And that's why, one of my focuses, sort of reflexive focuses, I never really thought about it, but it just naturally, reflexively happened, was I always looked away from the Upper Deck cards during the 90s, just because it was such a big behemoth to try and wrap my arms around to get a concept of all the Upper Deck cards. But what's so interesting about this, and what makes this conversation pertinent and evergreen, is that what's to stop an Upper Deck renaissance of Michael Jordan cards from happening, among collectors 5 years from now, where suddenly collectors start discovering those, and they're going to find out that Stanley has all the 1-of-1s. But what?
Right. And 24 of the serial number to 25s, and, exactly. And every international card. Right.
And Stanley's going to be the king of the hobby. So
that's right.
I just think about that. These are interesting discussions to have, because and I wish I would have had these thoughts and discussions when I first started collecting Michael Jordan, but it was never going to work that way. I had to learn and evolve and collect other eras and then import what I learned there back into here.
No, it's the same reason a scholar can't, you don't take calculus as a kindergartner, right? You've got to establish a foundation in the hobby. I was a moron when I came in and, back in, I should say, because I'm old as hell, but I came back in around 2016. Jordan wasn't even on my radar, man. And then when I jumped in, I just used somebody else's checklist, and I was like, I'm just going to do what this guy said was cool. And then I started watching you guys on House of Jordans, and then gradually I became a little more sophisticated to now, at least I know the questions. I don't have the answers, but at least I know the questions to ask, to make the right decisions, or what we think are the right decisions, the most educated decisions we can make on which Jordan cards, rank in priority or will endure the best. All right, here's some easy questions. You ready? So, and I think I know the answer to this one because you answered a little bit earlier. Wizards playing year cards versus unlicensed Bulls cards. If Chris McGill had to choose, I assume you're gonna go with the Wizards playing year licensed cards.
What's an example of an unlicensed Bulls card?
Well, I shouldn't have said that. I said that wrong. Not like exquisite collection, because those are licensed Bulls cards. Did I say unlicensed Bulls? I meant unlicensed, period. Like the Skybox stuff that just came out, the Metal Universe suit cards, pajama cards, whatever. So you're Wizards over those.
Wizards over those for sure.
Okay. Do you think most people are as well?
I don't know about that. I know that there are some collectors who have loved the price point of the retros. You can get PMG greens and PMG reds of the retros and stuff. I know people who really like the price point of those, and they flock to those, and they've made a whole niche for themselves collecting those. So I don't know if it's obvious that one is triumphant over the other right now.
Yeah, those were fun boxes to open. I opened one. Metal Universe box and pulled a LeBron jambalaya out of it. But it was cool because it was multi-sport. I didn't even know it was multi-sport because I'd never opened it. I opened it and I was, pulling all sorts of different styles. Like this is a really fun rip. But the Jordan cards that if I had pulled a Jordan card, I'd be like, I probably would have been excited. But yeah, I'd go Wizards all day long. Yep. What about if you've got to choose, price being equal, between a Wizards playing year card, let's say the Beam Team, and a Jordan, Bulls post playing year card from maybe not Exquisite Collection, because those are probably not going to be price comparable, but maybe the Beam Team or maybe the white or the black refractor Topps Chrome versus like an SP Auto or something like that post playing years Bulls. Where do you lean on that decision? Because I think people are making these types of decisions.
Wizards.
I do too.
Wizards, yeah.
Obviously.
The playing years factors. That's a really one. Even though within the playing years there's controversy, but having that cutoff and being able to create a bookend around what I'm focusing on that does rule out definitively anything associated with the 03-04 season or later. That is a big helpful tool in my collector toolbox that I use. And so I'm definitely going to take the Wizards because it meets that first cutoff.
Yeah. You don't get to the second level of analysis because it doesn't meet the first because it's not a playing year. What about, is there any Wizards card that you can think of that would trump a undeniable playing years Bulls card?
There's plenty of, but just because there's lots of playing years Bulls Jordan cards that have tons of copies, and it's like you can take the rarest playing years Wizards card and stack it up against the 95, 96 Total B or something. Yeah, and it's going to be a better card.
Yeah, for sure. I just don't think people are digging in those weeds right now. I really don't. I think one day they will. I don't know. Maybe us talking about it is going to cause a Wizard spike. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me because that'd be great. You know what? Y'all go over there. Y'all get out of here. Go over there. Go buy those Wizards cards. Chris said, "Let me get my stuff."
I have no Wizards cards for the record.
I've got like 7, right? I'm definitely not. This is not a pump and dump from Brian and Chris for sure. All right, Wizards. What about all things being equal, Wizards playing year cards versus 98-99 season? I don't think we got your answer on the 98-99 cards. Yes or no? Where do you fall on that fence for playing years or not?
First of all, I'm the wrong person to ask because early on in my Jordan collecting, I got some of the bigger 98-99 cards. I got the Molten Metal Fusion Titanium out of 40.
Yeah.
And I got the 98-99 Star Rubies out of 50. So and I have 2 copies of the 98-99 One of a Kind from Stadium Club. So, I have a decent level of interest in 98-99 Michael Jordan cards. Yeah. So I'm biased. And if I try to turn on my objective brain, I certainly will acknowledge that 97-98 has a much stronger claim to being playing years, no matter what the mode of analysis is. But I do think there's something. It doesn't override. In a perfect tie, 97-98 wins, or any playing years wins over 98-99. But 98-99 isn't the same as 03-04. And 98-99 isn't the same as 99-2000.
How is it compared to 94-95?
Well, so 94-95 is really interesting because Jordan came back and only played 17 regular season games and stuff. In 93-94 is interesting because they're, 93, 94, 98, 99. I think those are the two most controversial, or two of the most controversial seasons. I think they both get about the same treatments. Like he didn't suit up, he wasn't on a roster, but they do fall into the general definition, not the strict, but the general definition of playing years. They have important Michael Jordan cards, And they also have fully licensed non-upper deck Bulls uniform cards, which is a different way of narrowing in on Jordan. If you want to just say this plain year stuff, it's not for me, I'm just going to focus on Bulls uniform, 90s, fully licensed non-upper deck. That gets you a pretty small window of Michael Jordan cards that are great. You got your Fleer Metals, your Skybox Premiums, your Stadium Clubs, your Topps Chromes, but you rule out stuff that ended up getting produced at high levels in a different fashion. Okay, so that's a really like wishy-washy answer. I don't think 98, 99, or 93, 94 are on the same level as true strict playing years, but I think they have something valuable to them and that they fall into the general playing years category.
And they certainly are distinguishable from 99, 2000, right? Or correct. 2003, 2004. Okay, exactly. So well, we haven't answered all the questions. We've answered some of the questions. We've also posed some questions, but we're going to put the playing years topic to bed because we're right at the 30-minute mark. And so these are just some other questions that I thought, I think it'll be an interesting topic of conversation. And some of it's about cards. Some of it's not even about cards. The first question is not even about cards. I had this conversation with a frequent recurring co-host on a show that I do on the channel. Yeah. What if Jordan hadn't walked away and played baseball? What if let's say he ran it through and played through 97, 98 like he did, Chris, and had those 2 years? Do you think they could have ran off 8 in a row? Or do you think fatigue would have set in? Do you think contracts would have become an issue? Do you think Pippen would have had a problem because he didn't have that time as the alpha to realize I'm not an alpha? There's a lot of real interesting questions out there. Even I know Jordan was superhuman, supernatural, but like, God dang, Chris, that would have been a lot on the body to make an 8-year stretch of doing it every year, playing deep in the playoffs. I don't know. Nobody's a bigger fan of Jordan than me, but I don't know if they could have gotten those last 3 had they run off 5 before it.
It's a great point. I think the answer probably in general is like let's say Jordan didn't retire and the bookmakers were giving championship odds for the Bulls for the 93-94 season. They wouldn't have been minus 100. They would have been plus 600, plus 500. They would have been 5-1, 6-1 odds. And then 94, 95 probably would have been similar. They would have been favorites, but among a field of however many teams there were then, 28 maybe or so, among that field of teams, they were never going to be a 1-to-1 favorite. They would have been 5, 1 out of 5, 1 out of 6. And so just using the statistical model there, well, if he had a 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 6 chance of winning in 93-94 and a 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 6 chance in winning 94-95, the odds are that he would not have won either of those years.
Yeah.
Just as a byproduct of how analysts and bookmakers would look at that sport and give us some insight. Okay, so I think from that point of view, no. But I am a Michael Jordan believer, a Michael Jordan truther. Michael might have gotten psychologically fatigued, but let me tell you something about what he did during that offseason. He participated in 2 baseball professional seasons, not 1, 2. Okay, and he was second on his team in steals, just as like a random thing on a Double-A team, which is incredible. And then when he went to the Scottsdale team, the Scottsdale Scorpions, his batting average was 252, and he was going up against some of the best prospects and some of the best pitchers in baseball. Like, this guy was not physically fatigued. All right. This guy was playing baseball at a high level.
Listen. Stop. I don't want to hear any more baseball is like basketball talk. That's absurd. And it. I played both. I played both in college.
Okay.
The way my body felt after one basketball game compared to one baseball game where you stand around, occasionally you swing a bat, maybe you even hit it, twice a game, 3 times a game, whatever. Man, that's a whole different world. That's like comparing a basketball game to a boxing match or a UFC fight. Just because you're doing something doesn't mean you're doing the same thing. Now, I do agree. I think psychologically that is where the toll started to take effect, Chris. And even going back to watching The Last Dance, which was an absolutely, astonishing, life-changing documentary. You felt it. Like they did a really good job of kind of showing you how much pressure, how much mental anxiety, how much, it did start to catch up a little bit on him physically, although he would never let, opponents or anyone else know it. So I don't know. It's interesting. So your answer, would he have 6? Would he have 7? Or would he have 8?
My heart says 8. My brain says 6.
6.5. Yeah.
6.5.
Yeah. All right. Topic of conversation. Every once in a while, I sort of leave my path and leave my lane in the hobby, and I sort of pay attention to some stuff that other people are doing. Are you seeing any movement on 90s inserts and parallels of other sports that share a design with basketball?
Of course, yeah. I mean,
do you think that's basketball people meandering over, or do you think it's baseball and football people peering over to the left, seeing cool people like us and saying, you know what? If basketball people love those, maybe one day baseball people will love them. Let's go buy them.
Both, probably.
Think it's both?
Probably a bit of both, but I think it's undeniable from my experience, because I mostly talk to other basketball collectors when it comes to 90s collectors that I know. I've literally seen some of them start, looking at Ken Griffey Jr., 90s PMG, or, like
credentials and roof, all the same stuff. Yeah.
And football, and they'll look at Barry Sanders as just one of many examples of football players too. And again, it's a budgetary constraint factor. They love 90s. They're loyal to the brands and the parallels of the 90s that they like. And when Michael Jordan's, completely out of reach, well, hey, Barry Sanders or Jerry Rice, or, these guys are decent consolation.
Right. Well, you can either go to Reggie Miller or you can go to Jerry Rice, right? Or Barry Sanders, right? It's one of the, or you can get Jason Kidd, PMGs, or you can go buy, Brett Favre or Marino or whoever. So that's interesting. Yeah. It's funny because that's kind of the way my brain works. And every once in a while I'm like, God, Jordan prices are running, right now, for instance, Jordan prices are here. Maybe I should go look at LeBron stuff. Maybe I should go look at this. Maybe I should go look at that. And then, I always end up kind of, being very ashamed of coming back and buying, just paying the stupid premium and buying the Jordan card that I want. What about hockey? What about hockey collectors? Same thing? You think it's on a lower scale? You think? Because I see Gretzky stuff, like really meaningful Gretzky stuff, like Empire State, like Mark, he's the consigner or whatever, broker. He'll post some Gretzky stuff, and it'll be like, these are huge cards in the 90s basketball world. These are monster cards, like huge inserts and parallels. And it'll be Gretzky, and it'll be like $800, And I'm like, God dang, this guy's the undisputed GOAT. Like, there's no conversation about it. He's the undisputed GOAT. This is the same parallel. I don't know if the pack odds are the same, but I mean, some of them are serial numbered. It's like, why does Gretzky stuff seem so cheap?
Great question. I think that there's far less crossover from basketball and hockey collectors than there is basketball and football, for example. And I would count myself, I am a basketball and a football collector, but I don't do hockey. But let me say something about Gretzky. Wayne Gretzky has 9 regular season MVPs. 9.
I know. Yes.
And he has 2 Conn Smythe awards, which is a full playoff MVP, 2 playoff MVPs. So he has 11 total MVPs. And I love using total MVPs. It's like a little heuristic I've invented for my GOAT cheat sheet. And in football, the guy who has the most is Tom Brady. He has 8. And the guy in basketball who has the most is Michael Jordan. He has 11. And the step down from Michael Jordan to the next tier is huge, because you have MJ with 11, and then you have LeBron and Kareem with 8 apiece. And the step down in football is pretty big. You go from Brady with 8, then you have Peyton with 6, and then when you get to the 5s, you have a few guys: Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Montana, a few other guys. Okay, so I say that to say Wayne Gretzky has 11.
Yeah,
he is tied with Michael Jordan. Okay, that is astonishing. That Brady is not anywhere, quite frankly, close to Michael Jordan when it comes to the MVP count, and Gretzky is.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere like total, in hockey, like goals and assists adds up to points, and it's like he's the points leader. But they said that even if you took away every goal he ever scored, he'd still be the points leader. Like, what the hell is that? That is the craziest stat I've ever heard in my life. If you said, "Hey, you're not allowed to score," he would still be the all-time points leader. That's preposterous.
It is, Brian. And like, one of the themes of this conversation has been, or at least something that jumps out to me as we talk about all of this, is like, looking and seeing if when we stack up all the logical approaches we can to collecting, and certain things just start to stand out, like one of the things that starts to stand out is that Wayne Gretzky has an incredible resume. Like when I collect a player, or I think about collecting a player, I like to find a player who's the best at something. They don't have to be the best at everything. They don't have to be the best overall, but the best at something. Best of their era, or best shooter, or most rushing yards, something like that, right? And Wayne Gretzky has that all day long. He is just, incontrovertibly,
no question,
the greatest hockey player ever.
Agreed. What's your perspective on vaulting cards? You vault anything at all? Vault some, keep all, vault all? What do you do? I know you don't vault all, but what's your take on vaulting, the direction it's heading? Not a particular one vault or another, but like generally speaking, where you at on that? I know you like to look at them and make love to your cards and look at them. You make eye contact with Le'Veon Bell and stuff, and I get it.
Yep, me and Le'Veon make eye contact, and just takes the experience to a new level. I have had random occasions to vault cards for a duration. Maybe it's because I want to send it to auction, and then just the vaulting is a consequence of that, or maybe I win a card and I don't want to retrieve it quite yet, so I leave it in the vault then too. And the vault is nice. There's insurance protections that it provides. You get a nice high quality scan of the card. It's good. I think vaulting has become such a cornerstone of the marketplace experience that the leaders in vaulting have really done a nice job of perfecting it as a technique. So, but personally, I have very little use for it. I have a few times when I've used it, but eventually the card's coming home to me and I'm going to have it.
Well, you also, the way you collect, at least from what I've gathered after kind of knowing you all these years, you don't have the most voluminous collection of like high-end slabs. You've really, like, I don't want to say consolidate, but you hyper focus on the cards you really want.
I need them all, Brian. I need them all to fit into one 2-row shoebox, one graded 2-row shoebox. And
you're still there? You can do that still.
I can do. It's full. I have room for like 1 or 2 slabs in the 2-row right now, which means stuff has to start.
Something's got to go. Yeah, something's got to go. Investor question, because I know you love talking about investing in sports cards, right?
Yeah.
Where's the best place to put your money in the basketball market right now? Somebody gives you $50,000 and they're like, "Hey, turn this into $100,000 5 years from now." I know you don't like to do this, but I'm making you do it. I'm giving you $50,000. You got to do it. I want you to bring it back to me. Bring me back $100,000.
I could try to give a diplomatic answer that has the pretense of being objective, but I'm actually just going to give the answer that shot into my head, which is going to revolve, or I'm just going to say I wouldn't advise anybody to do anything that I wouldn't do. And when it comes to active players, I'm heavily collecting Nikola Jokic.
Yeah, I noticed.
That's where, like, when it comes, I could look at other. There's plenty of cases for other players, and they're compelling, obviously. But like, it would be a little bit weird for me to say that, and then then somebody turns on the crossover and they're like, "This
weird because you've got $800,000 of Jokic over here, you liar."
Exactly.
But I'm also, but Chris, look, I'm including non-active players. I'm just saying in the card market, like it might be, Penny Hardaway or what? Pull a name out. Is if it's you include non-active and active, Jokic is still your guy. I mean, Jokic is active, so you get to enjoy. I've heard you talk about it, and I talk about it all the time. The feeling you get when your guy, like Giannis is my guy, when your guy is doing something, it's just a different feeling than when you collect a player that's already retired, even as great as LeBron, as Jordan is, and Kareem and Magic and Bird and all those guys. When you've got an active player and you've got a rooting interest in the game, like I don't gamble really, but it's like you're gambling. And if you get that same rush because it's your guy doing these things when they finally get where they're, trying to get, you don't get that same feeling with, retired players, but you get the best of both worlds because the reason to buy the retired players is because they can't have a bad game. They can't tear an ACL. Their performance can't result in their prices going down. Well, Jokic has built up such a preposterous resume already that he is undeniably a first ballot Hall of Famer. he's already a top. I'm sure you would agree he's a top 20 player based on resume already.
Yep.
Right? Top 20?
Yep.
Let me ask you that. How about that question? Is he a top 20 player based on paper resume?
There's so many ways to evaluate a resume, but I would evaluate it using my simple MVP metric.
He's got 4, right?
Yeah, he has 4. And so
Mhm.
I can just use that metric to, rattle off to you my top list if I were to make one. I wouldn't even inject my own. My bias would exist at the point of methodology. But once
Read the list, and I'll tell you who is on your list that has 4 that's not a top 25.
Exactly. Okay. So first is Michael Jordan in a tiered. This is a tiered list. Okay. But first is Michael Jordan in a tier by himself, 11 total MVPs. Second tier, LeBron and Kareem have 8 each. In the event of a tiebreaker, I'm going to lean towards the player who accomplished it most recently.
Okay.
So in a tiebreaker, I would say LeBron over Kareem. The next tier, which would be the 4th player, 3rd tier, Magic Johnson. In a class by himself, he has 6. The next tier down, the players who have 5. So now we're talking about, and there's 4 players in this category. So we're talking about players ranked 5th through 9th. Tim Duncan, Larry Bird, Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell. Now, some people are going to jump up right away and say, this is fine, but during Wilt and Bill Russell's era, there was not a finals MVP. So, or there wasn't until the later stages of Wilt's career.
Yeah.
So Bill Russell, how many finals MVPs would he have?
18, or whatever. 21. Yeah.
And it's a fair point. It's a good counterpoint. And my response to it, which I don't think ends the argument, but my response to it is just fair point. But it's also sort of helpful or interesting that the finals MVP wasn't invented because nobody thought it was important enough.
Right.
Then. So it actually, and the league was so much smaller then, et cetera.
8 teams, 10 teams, 12 teams, some of those rings that Russell won. It's like winning your conference, and not even, it's like winning your division almost. So,
exactly. So I think there's arguments on both sides. I prefer to only count the actual awards that were given out and not hypothetical ones. Okay, so there's players 1 through 9. Then one step below is the players with 4. So these would be players 10, 11, and 12. You have Jokic, Shaquille O'Neal, and Moses Malone. Those guys have 4. Then, and I'll just stop after this tier. Then you get to the tier of 3. And so this tier has 6 guys in it. So these are going to be players 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18.
Okay.
Steph Curry, Giannis, Kevin Durant, Kobe Bryant, Hakeem Olajuwon, and Willis Reed. And I'll just stop there. There's your top 18.
Yeah. Willis Reed's the only one that I would say is, I would not have thought. I could take a closer look, but I would not have guessed that I would have Willis Reed ahead of Barkley or Malone or a lot of the guys that just didn't. They just never had the team, man. They just didn't. Or, more importantly, they played in Jordan's era. And so there you go. There goes, 8 years worth of MVPs that you can't win or whatever. So, it's a cool list. I like your metric. I wish you would make a distinction between finals MVP and regular season MVP, because this is where you and I would very much disagree, because I'm not part of the ring culture. While I think it's important and I think to be the greatest of all time, certainly you had to have reached the mountaintop. I don't think finals MVP carries nearly the weight that a regular season MVP does as far as how good a particular player is. So because to do something over an 82-game season is very different than Andre Iguodala catching a heater or Jaylen Brown, outplaying the 18th best player in the NBA, Jason Tatum. It's one of those deals where I just think regular season MVP, they never get it wrong. Well, I say they can get it wrong for sure, but it's never going to be Jaylen Brown or Andre Iguodala. Let's put it that way, right?
Yeah, it's a good point. So the virtue of the total MVP is that it's so simple that anybody can grasp it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love going into the advanced stats and looking more closely, but people, their eyes roll in the back of their heads. But what I've done though is I've done an analysis. I did this last summer. I spent like too much time on this, but I went through. Basketball Reference has 3 catch-all statistics. It has win shares per 48, box plus minus, and player efficiency rating. Those 3, and that's it. Some people say, well, what about VORP and total win shares? Those are derived. Those are cumulative versions of the 3 that I mentioned. So just so we have that clear, there's 3 catch-all statistics on Basketball Reference. I went and I took for every NBA season, going back to the very first season, I went and I looked at where every player ranked in each of those catch-alls. And then I said, if whoever ranked the highest, so if you were second in PER, third in BPM, and fifth in wind shares per 48, but your average rank across those three is higher than anybody else's, then I say that you were the statistical MVP of that season.
Yeah.
Which happens to line up quite well with MVP voting historically, especially more recently. Well, if you do that, Michael Jordan, who in reality got 5 regular season MVPs, he should have had 9 if we used that, if we retroactively use that. Shaquille O'Neal got 1. He should have had 4.
Voter fatigue, man. It's voter fatigue, right?
But the guy who's the biggest beneficiary of this analysis, and I don't know if there are any fans of him in the audience, I'm sure there's a few, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who got 6 regular season MVPs.
He should have had 19.
He should have had 11. He should have had 11.
Yeah, well, let's be fair. You hear people talk about firemen and plumbers and crap in the 60s. The 70s was watered down like a mother because of the ABA, and then just because it was just, for whatever reason, I don't want to say it was devoid of talent, but a lot of people were, snorting coke at halftime, and it just wasn't. There wasn't the most professional, acumen amongst the players back then. I mean, when I think of the 70s, Chris, without question, I think that is the decade with the least amount of talent. And I know I'm offending a bunch of guys that are in their 60s and 70s, but you think of George Gervin, you think of Maravich, but Maravich's career didn't really pan out the way we wanted. I know he's a legend, he's a hobby darling, but Kareem, it wasn't even remotely close. It wasn't until Moses kind of stepped on the scene to push Kareem and won those MVPs that anybody even mentioned another name other than Doc, Kareem, Iceman, and Moses. I mean, I'm trying to think of other guys in the 70s. I'm sure there was other
Bill Walton had a run in the late 70s.
So brief though, man. Best player in the world for 1 year, 1 title, but then it was like boom, gone. It's like Bo Jackson. It's like. You just wish you'd have gotten to see, where Walton would have ended. No question, he would have been a top 25 all time. No question about that. But we never got to see it. All right, I got more.
Yeah. One more thing, Brian.
Yeah.
Sort of tying back into your question about who are the players that might be interesting to buy now. If going off of this metric, there are only a few active players who have a chance to really make a dent legacy-wise. One of them is your guy, Giannis. Yeah. He's at 3 right now. He has a back half of a career coming up. If he can somehow get to 6, I'm not saying he would, but if he gets to 6, he is, by my metric, a top 5 player of all time because he'll be tied with Magic Johnson.
I'll take it.
Yeah. So if he can get to 6, Steph Curry, he doesn't have a lot of time left. If he can get to 6, but he won't, it would be very difficult, but he can even move up a rank or 2. And then LeBron, if LeBron just gets one more finals MVP, if he could do that,
he jumps tiers for you.
He escapes the tie with Kareem. And then that's also why I like Jokic. Jokic has a back half of a career coming up. He has 4 right now. If Jokic gets 2 more MVPs, preferably finals MVPs for my point of view, but whatever, 2 more MVPs, then he gets into the top 5 all-time discussion because then he's tied with Magic in that 3rd tier. So there are active players who the next 5 years,
rewriting history, man.
Exactly. Those are the players that I'm most excited about looking at.
The player I'm most excited about looking at that I can't collect his cards, and I just did a rant video because I wish I could collect his cards, he's going to be in your tiers at some point. There's no doubt about that. I cannot wait to see this career for Victor Wembanyama lift off. And it's old and brittle and not the same as Chris Paul is. Just having that mean-ass dude around him to show him how it's done. Yep. He's a cutthroat killer who doesn't care about anybody's feelings. Having Chris Paul as your point guard, I mean, he's a slight improvement over Trey Jones, who is a big improvement over Jeremy Sohan at the point guard experiment. So I really think Victor Wembanyama is going to have I went ahead and sprinkled a little bit of money on FanDuel for MVP. I know that sounds stupid and crazy because the Spurs, surely they can't win 500, right? They can't go 500, can they?
Oh, they could go 500.
You think they can?
Yeah.
Well, if they go 500, that's your MVP. I'm telling you, that's ridiculous. That would be absolutely ridiculous.
Brian, I love that sprinkle. I sprinkled on Wembanyama MVP last year going into the season. And you know what?
That was crazy. Yeah.
Well, gambling is interesting, sports betting, because it lets you cash out sometimes.
Yes.
And so sometimes. With Wembanyama, he was like I don't know. He was a very long shot at the start of the season. Then right in the first few games of the season, they beat the Phoenix Suns twice, and his MVP odds, got 5 times shorter. I just cashed out.
Yes, exactly. I know. Like, hey, he's 7th in MVP voting, but you're in it like plus 10,000, and they're like, here, just take $800, get away. Exactly.
So I think there is opportunity for something like that, but it all depends on what are the odds. If Wembanyama is already like a plus 1,500, then probably not. But if he's like plus 7,500, I could see those odds increasing.
Yeah, for sure. I love the cash out option. I just wish I knew when it triggered. Like, what triggers that? Like, sometimes I can, sometimes I can't.
Exactly.
I'm always the soft. Let's hedge risk. I'm taking it. Give me my money. I want to get out of here with a little bit of something. Hedge risk. You saw the Wilt Chamberlain got graded in SGC 10.
Amazing. Wilt is Wilt is one of those guys. The plumbers thing comes around. So there ain't no plumbers argument against Wilt. What was that guy's vertical? Put that guy in the league today, and he's just as dominant.
He would be an absolute freak of nature. What do you think that Wilt card's worth? I think the last I don't think we've ever seen a PSA 10 sell. I don't think.
No, there's 3 of them. There's 3, right? Yeah.
Just the PSA 9, right? And so the PSA 9 sold for what? $670.
Yeah, the PSA 9 with a high appeal. Yeah.
With the high appeal, right? So this is a whole nother level than that.
Exactly.
What do you think? If you had to pin the tail on the donkey,
how many 9s are there? There's like 32, I think.
32 9s.
I mean, so yeah. And there's one SGC 10, and there's 3 PSA 10s, and there's no BBG gems. So you have 4 gems to choose from. Vintage collectors have a ton of respect for SGC. So I hope it's not out of bounds to say that's $1 million card, because I think it probably is.
I think more, Chris. Yeah. Way more.
Yep.
I think so.
That's a very special card.
One of the arguments that I've heard made, and it's sound, and there's a reason behind it, is that, well, I don't want to say this, but your parent company, PSA, right, used to grade maybe a little less stringent in the past than they do today. Well, this SGC card just got graded. And so some people think this SGC 10 is better than those PSA 10s.
Might be the best one to exist.
It might be. I've never laid eyes on them or whatever, but that's one argument, is that this was the most recently graded of the 4 gems that exist. The gem rates, Chris, for that 61 Fleer, 0.16 or 0.17, right? 0.17%. So 7, whatever.
A fifth of a percent, yeah.
And then 0 for Beckett. And then it's like 0.16% or something like that for SGC. So I don't know. It's wild stuff. I think it would sell closer to 2 million. That's just me personally. I don't know. All right. You got to answer 2 questions. I'm putting the spotlight on you. Okay. So you're on the hot seat for these are the last 2 questions, and we'll tie a bow on this. Most underrated basketball player of all time. And I think I know who you're going to say.
Damn, of all time?
Of all time. Your most underrated basketball player of all time. And don't pick like Charles Oakley or somebody stupid. Just give me a real player. It could be a Hall of Famer, right? But it could be somebody, and I don't mean cards, so I'm not saying, hey, these guys' cards should be worth more. Just your knowledge of basketball. You are a basketball student of the game. Who do you think doesn't get the credit that they deserve, whether it's because they didn't win enough titles and they should have, they just were never in the right place at the right time, or just doesn't get the attention, maybe because of their attitude or personality or whatever?
Great question. I'm going to give an answer now, but it might change after 2 hours from now. I'm thinking back on this. I'm like, shit, I should have said this guy. But what I'm going to, and my childhood self is going to hate me for this answer, because I was a huge Hakeem Olajuwon fan as a kid, right? Okay. What? Olajuwon. Okay. Olajuwon. Yep. He's my number 2. All right. He's my number 2. My number 1 is Olajuwon's one of his primary rivals, a guy who Olajuwon absolutely embarrassed.
David Robinson.
When I was
you're right, dude. I couldn't believe how good he was. I couldn't believe it.
And I'm just leaning on the crutch of advanced stats to come up with this, but even during Michael Jordan's prime, David Robinson was the top advanced analytics player for, I think, 2 seasons in the 90s. This guy was just, the efficiency of his game and the way that he racked up box score statistics, it wasn't appreciated at the time. If he was doing that today, it would be a lot more appreciated.
And if I recall, number one, he was the hottest card in the hobby for a little stretch there before Shaq came along, and then of course Shaq took it from there. But I think didn't he spend 2 years in the Navy for service? So he lost 2 prime years, Chris.
And I mean, when you talk about, he did. So he entered the league at an older age in his early 20s. But if you look at turnarounds from a team pre-draft versus post-draft, the Spurs gained something like 40 wins by the addition of David Robinson.
Yeah. I like to attribute it to Avery Johnson, but if you think David Robinson was the reason, that's fine.
It could be Avery too. Yeah.
All right, inverse of that question, and this is where you're going to get the heat, man. But that's hard question. Most overrated superstar of all time. Most overrated superstar of all time. I caught heat. I mention this occasionally here and there. So I've got 2 guys in mind, but I'm not gonna influence you. So I'm gonna let you answer, and then I'll tell you who I think.
Yeah, this is a great one. I can tell you who I think the most overrated active player is.
Draymond Green would be my choice for most overrated active player, but go ahead.
It's Anthony Edwards.
I know, and I've heard y'all don't like Anthony Edwards. I think the deal with Anthony Edwards is people are trying so hard to fit him into the Jordan box. Like they're jamming his little face into the box. Be Jordan. Dude, he's just relax.
He's fun. I saw one of the coolest in-game dunks I've ever seen in my life during the Western Conference Finals from him. And it was offensive, and it was so good it pissed me off because the whole Mavericks crowd was just like, oh, and I'm like, we can't be, but the dunk was so insane.
Yeah.
Okay, in terms of all-time greats or overrated all-time greats, can I just think about this for a second?
Think about it, because I'm looking something up that I want to share with you in just a second.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm just thinking about this and there's an argument that Kobe is overrated, but to me, I don't think Kobe is, no matter what metric I use. I like to use the total MVP metric, and if not that, then the advanced metric, because to me, my measure of greatness is how many seasons were you the greatest player in the world, or did you have a claim to be the greatest player in the world? And Kobe, by the MVP metric, has 3, where he was the greatest player in the world for a finals, which I think if you're the best player in the best team during the finals, you have some level of a claim to being the best player in the world, usually. So he's got 3 by that way. By the advanced way, he's doing worse. So I just think, if somebody has him as a top 3 player of all time,
I got a problem with that.
I don't think that's right. If somebody has him top 10, I don't find it as controversial.
I'm okay with it. Yeah.
But I have him probably around 15.
Good. Well, you're getting me off the hook, because I constantly on this channel say I don't understand the vitriol when I disagree. Kobe is the GOAT, obviously, right. And I say I have him somewhere 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. That's higher than you got him. So you know what, guys, deflect all your hatred. Yeah, take it out there, take it down to Dallas, and bring it on Chris. Here you go, Chris. Here's your response when somebody compares Anthony Edwards to Michael Jordan and says he's the next Michael Jordan. That's their 4th seasons. Yeah. So Anthony Edwards' season on the left, Michael Jordan's season on the right, where he was first-team All-NBA, All-Defensive, MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, and an All-Star, and averaged 10 points more than Anthony Edwards, whose only purpose is to score.
Well said. There ain't nothing else to say after that.
Yeah. And by the way, why don't I go ahead and shoot 53.5% from the field as a guard, who lives in the mid-range?
That is just disgusting.
That needs to be shut down. Anybody who's comparing the two, and I get it. He's a dark-skinned shooting guard that jumps high and has muscles, and he's very freaking exciting to watch. And you've got to watch every game because you never know what he's going to do. But just resembling them physically is not nearly enough. Otherwise Corey Maggette would have been Michael Jordan. It just doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work.
You know that famous nicknames card of Harold Miner?
Yeah, baby Jordan. Yeah. Yeah. They should have capitalized the baby on that,
should have put Jordan in size 2 font and baby size 5.
That's it, Chris. That's all I got. Anything you want to talk about? Oh, you know what? I'm terrible at this. Let me do this real quick. Hang on. I'm going to screen share here. You guys, if you're watching, I know if you've been living under a rock and you don't know who Chris is, he is the one of the three. What do you want me to call you? What are y'all called now? Are you owners still called owners? Because I know you were acquired by.
Nope, we are not owners, but you could just say co-founders. How about that?
Co-founders, yes. He's one of the three co-founders of Card Ladder, which if you've been living under, first of all, if you don't know what that is, you've never watched my channel. Every single video I do, I'm using the work that Chris, Christina, and Josh put in to share Card Ladder data, to dig through indexes, to look at graphs, to look at cards in the database, to use their real easy links to get the pop reports, and then to go find the damn cards on eBay. They make it as easy as possible. So Chris is one of the three founders of Card Ladder. Go follow them on Instagram. It's Card Ladder, no spaces, no capitals. He's also Chris_Hoj, Hoj, which stands for House of Jordan. So make sure you also follow him on Instagram individually. And then I think this is really important. Not every Friday night, because y'all got super lazy lately and you've acted like other things in life are just as important. But they do something called, Chris and Josh do something called the crossover, and Christina, who doesn't want to be on camera, but she's back there. They do the crossover, which is a great listen. If you've got a couple of hours, and obviously if you're watching this, you must like long-form podcasts if you're still listening. Chris and Josh do an awesome job on Friday, taking questions from the hobby and just kind of nothing's really out of bounds or off limits. You guys pretty much answer every question that's posed and tell the truth, which I love. And then here's a blast from the past, Chris. I don't know the last time you looked at this, but Chris has his own YouTube channel, and he has something called House of Jordans with, I think, Brian was the other guy's name, and then your brother was lurking in the shadows, almost like Christina does now, right? Yep. And then Christina, and y'all just talk about Jordan cards. And
we've got tons of old episodes up there, and some like interviews I was doing with people like in the 2020 era. Awesome. It's pretty cool. Yeah, but we haven't posted anything. Nothing new has showed up there in a long time.
Nothing new, but y'all should definitely go subscribe and then just go binge watch them. I'm telling you, if you like my stuff, if you like the hierarchy, and if you're new to Jordan collecting, or even if you've been doing it forever, this is some great content that is evergreen. And it's actually it's really kind of funny because when you go back and listen to it, y'all are talking about prices a lot. Oh. And it's like, God, if I had a time machine, I would go kill it right now. You know?
Oh, man. And stuff was so expensive back then, too.
That's right. That's right. I just remember during COVID, this was my safe haven, going back and getting on my bike and, staying away from people because we thought we were all going to be dead, and listening to you guys talk about Jordan cards. It was really cool. So, Chris, always a pleasure when you join the channel. We've got to do this again. We'll do it again. Let's say 6 months. I want to get you soon after the NBA season starts, so we can kind of get your impression on what's been going on in the NBA season. And I'm going to do a better job of scheduling guests to come on and talk on the channel, because people get tired of hearing me talk. So it was a pleasure to get to talk to you today. Playing years Jordans. That's the dilemma. We threw a big matzo ball out there and left a big unanswered question, but we gave our thoughts on it. And I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I appreciate you. You've been having Nat Turner and Josh Dawson. You took a little step down to bring me on.
Yeah.
So, we appreciate that.
All right. Well, look, you're always welcome. If you ever have something to say and you want to use my platform, however small it is, it's yours. I'm at your service, man, because you've always been such a great resource and helpful to me. So tell Christina I said hello. Tell Josh I said hello. Josh, I don't think has ever – oh, wait, we did – you know what? We did a fantasy basketball draft on this channel. Yeah. We got to go back and check on that.
I don't know if I want to check.
No, I don't want to go back and check on that either. No, we'll have to do that again. That'll be fun.
Yeah. All right. Sounds great, man.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Guys, keep collecting, stay positive in the hobby, and peace.